time coming to an end. Perhaps. Speaking of Ryan Wilson, we're talking about his latest mock because we want his thoughts on his latest mock. Ryan, Will Levis will be happy to see his name atop the draft charts. He may even be happy about moving to Seattle. What is it about Levis that casual fans might be overlooking that puts him top in this mock?
Jeremy, there are a few constants in this world, but one of them is you can guarantee that every time I release a mock draft, the subsequent tweets in my direction will be, this is the worst mock draft I've ever seen. This latest mock draft was no exception. That's okay. It makes you tougher, right? Will Levis. So here's the thing. We saw some of those clips coming in as you were talking about him. They had a tough game last week against Ole Miss in that loss. A lot of it was to do with the offensive line, which struggled for Kentucky. They had a lot of turnover there. But Will Levis, the skills he possesses, the intangibles, he's one of the smartest players on that team, and a lot of NFL teams like that about him. The physical tools, the stature, the arm strength, the mobility, all those things check the boxes when you start the evaluation process. Penn State transfer who played well last year, flashed. He's flashed even more this year. And the math that you have to do is, okay, he's behind an offensive line that isn't very good, but when he stands in the pocket and makes throws, he does things like this. And he gives his team a chance to move the ball down the field. He's accurate to the sidelines. He's obviously accurate on the deep balls down the field as well. And he does a lot of things that translates immediately to the next level. Now, again, on Twitter, which isn't real life, people get angry because they see the way he played last week and the way he played against Florida to a lesser degree, and are very angry about that. But NFL teams are trying to project beyond October, November, and trying to think what this looks like for 5, 10, 15 years down the road. And I can tell you that NFL teams like Will Levis a lot, and they also like Anthony Richardson a lot. He was incredibly raw out of Florida, but will only get better. So something to keep in mind as you target your vitriol towards me on your favorite social media platform, Jeremy.
Kentucky 6-point favorites going into the game against the Gamecocks this weekend. All right, let's talk about some of the other guys in the mock draft via some of the games this weekend. And let's start with the oldest rivalry in the South as Auburn goes to Georgia. Part of our doubleheader on CBS this weekend. Who are you watching in that particular game?
Yeah, so I was going through this mock draft and looking up some fun facts. And last year, Georgia had 8 players on the defensive side of the ball drafted, a number of them in round 1, and we can make it 9 if you want to throw in the punter, Jake Camarda, who's having a good rookie season so far. I'm going to start on that side with Nolan Smith, the edge rusher. He's number 4 in your playbook, number 1 in your heart. Here's the thing. He's a little undersized. He's about 235. He has first-round talent, but the problem is that he doesn't flash it consistently because of that size. That said, he is always around the ball. He does a great job setting the edge as an edge defender. He can play in space if you want him to drop into coverage, and those are all encouraging signs if you're a Georgia team that's already really, really good. And on the other side of the ball, I'll talk about his teammate Broderick Jones, who would be the next in line of many offensive linemen who've had a ton of success at Georgia. We know about Andrew Thomas, who's coming into his own as a former first-round pick for the Giants. More recently, Jamari Sawyer, who was drafted as a guard in round 6. He's going to be the new starting left tackle for the Chargers now with Rashawn Slater down. Did well last week, and I expect that to continue. Broderick Jones is another one, and he is exceptionally athletic, long arms, moves well in space, great against the run, all the things you look for when you're looking to draft these offensive linemen high, and he's doing it week in and week out against some of the best players in the country, those SEC opponents.
A couple of good names to keep an eye on in a game that Vegas is expecting to be a blowout. Number 2, Georgia, 30-point favorites as they head into that one. The line a little tighter between Florida and Missouri. The Gators 11-point favorites going into that one. Who are you anxious to see in that game?
Well, Anthony Richardson's the default answer, but I'm going to go to the other side of the ball. I'm going to Javon Dexter, the defensive lineman, on the Senior Bowl watch list, and rightly so, has had a solid career, but he's actually busted out a little bit this year and gotten your attention the more you watch around the line of scrimmage there. He's incredibly strong. This is the great interception he had a few weeks ago. He's incredibly strong at the point of attack. He can stand up to double teams. He can shoot the gaps. He can get skinny as much as you can get skinny for a 315-pound defensive lineman. He can get after the quarterback. Again, he does everything well. Is he super exceptional in any one thing? Not necessarily, but that's okay. You want a guy who's well-rounded, both against the run and the pass, that can make plays, that shows some athleticism, like this interception here against Kentucky, where he had probably his best game to date. And that's just a name to keep an eye on as we go through this process. There are a ton of other names, Trey Dean on the back end, Brenton Cox Jr. As well, Ventrell Miller, the linebacker. But if you're going to look up front along the defensive line, start with Javon Dexter for sure.
All right, over in the ACC, Florida State, 3-point dogs versus the Wolfpack. And if NC NC State quarterback Devin Leary had the clock in his head going off last week. It'll be ringing again this week because of this next pass rusher.
Jarrett Verse, the transfer out of Albany. And the first question you always ask when you have a player coming from a smaller school, especially to a big-time program like Florida State, is how is this going to work in terms of the competition? Well, all you need to do is flip on that LSU game, and sweet mercy alive, you would have thought that was vintage, pick your favorite pass rusher ever of all time, Lawrence Taylor-type domination. Play after play after play, Jeremy. The very first play of the game, I think he shocked the left tackle with just how strong he was. And to make things funnier, if you're a Florida State fan, he went up to the right side and did to the right tackle and did it all game. Now, here's the issue. He suffered a knee injury a few weeks ago, played limited snaps last week against Wake Forest. Still flashed wearing a big, bulky knee brace, by the way. But when he's 100%, he has put himself on the radar almost out of nowhere. Albany's not necessarily nowhere, but in terms of big-time Power 5 college football. And I expect him, as he gets healthier, to continue to dominate. What a fun story and what a fun player to watch.
FSU chasing their 27th win in their 41st meeting in that particular rivalry with the Wolfpack. All right, lastly, we get Army traveling to Wake Forest to face the Demon Deacons. And you have a couple of guys that you're watching here, Ryan. Tell us about them.
Yeah, we don't spend a lot of time talking Army when it comes to draft prospects. Army-Navy is obviously a big conversation to have later in the football season. But here we go. Andre Carter II, he's going to be one of the first Army players to be drafted as a top 100 player in a very long time. He's an edge rusher. He's long, and he is absolutely electric. Athletic, needs to get a little more consistent, but you see plays like this with that long frame, long legs, long arms, and beating the right tackle off the snap, and that shows up consistently on tape, and that's what gets your attention. Now, he's doing it at Army, but he's doing it against some really good competition. He's basically the only show in town on that side of the ball, so just something to keep in mind as we go through the rest of the season, the second half of the season here. Andre Carter II is going to get drafted pretty high. Other side of the ball, Wake Forest is one of the most fun stories of the season so far. Sam Hartman came back from potentially not playing, is playing really well. He's throwing the ball to A.T. Perry, who is an absolutely enormous target, plays mostly on the outside. I don't want to call him a jump ball specialist because he can do well on the short and intermediate routes as well. He's not going to beat you off the line of scrimmage with sheer speed, but he's a down-the-field threat. He's a contested catch machine. He can make the deep balls in terms of his great focus on the deep ball throws, and he comes up with those more times than not. So keep an eye on A.T. Perry as we go through this game as well on Saturday, Jeremy.
Wake Forest has won 10 of the last 11 meetings between these two. CBS Sports HQ's Ryan Wilson discussing his latest mock draft and players he'll be keeping an eye on this weekend. Thanks, Ryan. Hopefully Twitter is, not too awful. Good luck. To dive deeper into the mock draft, head over to CBSSports.com. But for more from Ryan, check out the Pick Six podcast. Latest episode is Will Brinson and Brady Quinn breaking down the top storylines from Week 5 in the NFL, including the ongoing saga regarding Tua Tagovailoa and his concussions. And Joe Burrow admitting he's had multiples and blacked out during games. Lots to discuss as we head into Week 5. Download and follow the Pick Six pod wherever you get your podcast audio.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.